Welcome to the Town of Highland Beach Town Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, and we are going to get started with our Town Commission meeting. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Goldberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes, here.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Vice Mayor Stern is absent, Mayor Moore,
Present.
Town Manager Labadie,
Present.
and Town Attorney Tercivia.
Present.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And if we could all rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first, moving on to the presentations and proclamations. Our first presentation is supposed to be an educational report by Erica Whitfield, but I don't see that she's here yet. So once she joins, then, oh, well, I guess first thing, I'm sorry. I skipped over an item. Any changes to the agenda?
No,
No,
no.
If no changes, may we have a motion, please?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, as I was saying, I don't believe Ms. Whitfield is here yet, so if she joins us, then we will have that presentation. Next item, resolution number 2023-033. It's a resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, ratifying the selection, appointments, and term of office of the Code Enforcement Board and providing for an effective date. So we have one vacancy and two applicants. So I guess what we'll do is we'll call up each applicant, and if you could just say a few things about yourself, and then each of us will just ask you a couple questions. So I guess we'll start off with Dr. David Kaufman. If you could please come to the podium, state where you live, and a few things about yourself.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Board. My name is David Kaufman. I'm a breast surgical oncologist, just retired. What that means is I'm a breast surgeon. I did cancer surgery for about 35 years. I've owned a home here in Highland Beach for about 6 years, but I've had a home in South Florida since 1998. My interest in the code enforcement and working with the board and the community dates back my entire life, because I was raised in a family of volunteerism and community service. As a young boy and a teenager and into my adulthood, I witnessed both of my parents giving back to the community as volunteers. And my dad, who's going to be 93, actually just retired from 2 community boards that he served on for over 50 years as a volunteer. So this comes as nothing new to me. In terms of my own personal experience, I volunteered for many causes over my life, some having to do with medicine and healthcare, where I volunteered to go on medical missions and take care of people in need who didn't have the appropriate or proper care, but also in the community as serving in the community, whether it be for advocating for recycling projects, making sure that the community was taken care of, kept clean, and that people were abiding by the rules and regulations of the community in terms of how they disposed of their trash and rubbish and things like that. So this position on the board resonates with me because of that. This is not a stretch for me. It's who I am. It's what I believe in. And I want to serve and volunteer and help our community remain as magnificent as it is.
Great, thank you. So we'll go through each of the commissioners and give an opportunity to ask questions. Commissioner Goldberg.
thank you. Mr. Kaufman, I was awed reading your resume. There are medical professionals, many in our town, but in your particular the history of what you've given back, both in medicine and to the community. and we have two magnificent people before us that are willing to give services. And that's just so wonderful. We, as a board, I personally really appreciate that. And it's wonderful to have you here. So I've read with interest, and I hear your comments about what you've done in other communities and how you're dedicated here. So I don't have any specific questions, but I thank you very much for putting your name before us.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, Mr. Goldman, I feel the same way. Your resume, it's like a book there, and I thank you for being in a position, especially involving cancer. I see you're from Brooklyn, so I was an old Brooklyn Dodger fan when I grew up. So, yeah, I have no questions. The resume and everything, all your volunteer work speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the kind words.
They've said it all. My question is, how would you distinguish yourself from the other applicant? Since I don't personally know either, and both applications are quite good, I need some way to judge.
Sure, it's a fair question. I am certain that the other candidate is equally qualified, perhaps more qualified than I. I don't know. I don't know the gentleman. But I can tell you that this is not, as I said before, this is not a job for me. This is who I am. It permeates every cell in my body. It's like when people ask me, how could I have done surgery and been a breast cancer surgeon and taken care of women and some men over my career? I mean, isn't that difficult? No, actually it's not, because it's who I am. It's what I believe in every cell of my body. So it was never a job. And something like this, it's about passion, about caring. And so it's not a job for me. And that's how I think I would distinguish myself.
And you would prefer to be on code enforcement as opposed to natural resources?
I am aware of that open position as well, ma'am, and I'd be open to either or both, because I believe strongly in both of those causes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Kaufman. Thank you for stepping forward. Yeah, that brings a very good point, because we do have vacancies on the Natural Resources Preservation Board. And since we do have two very qualified candidates,
Do we know what the vacancy right now?
I believe there is.
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe there are, oh, it's not listed here.
Oh, I don't know.
Do we have I thought we did have vacancies on that.
Natural Resource, no, just Board of Appeals and Adjustments, and then there's one on planning that just opened.
And then one on planning, I think we have
Yes.
a candidate for that. Okay.
So it's Board of
So
Appeals and
we
Adjustments, yeah.
So it's just the only issue with the Board of Adjustment and Appeals is they're not a very active board, right? They
Quite infrequent, yeah.
well, let me go on with my question.
Please.
So this board does meet pretty frequently. Are you here full-time now
For the most part,
for the most part?
I still have family back in New York, so I do go back to see my children, my dad. But
So my question is, would you, if you would, hopefully you saw how frequently they met, would you be able to be present for the meetings?
how frequently do they meet?
Once a month, once a month. they
Yeah,
meet
so one other question is, are these in-person
In
meetings?
person.
Is there an opportunity to view the meeting on Zoom?
So we try for the quasi judicial to meet in person. Code enforcement, planning, we like to meet in person because of the direct impact and property owners, real property or vested interest in the real property. We want to have that. And it's kind of the code enforcement's quasi judicial in the sense that it's truly like a little mini court, if you will, for violations. So we do meet in person, and we are not supportive of Zoom on those. Natural Resources, Financial Advisory Board, we have more flexibility built into those groups because they're recommending bodies only. So.
And they don't meet as often. So I think those other two boards you mentioned, the Natural
Mm-hmm.
Resources Preservation Board meets like once a quarter. So it's not as, and then lately they've been having additional special interest type presentations, which obviously are not official board meetings, but other opportunities to be involved. So, okay, that was pretty much,
So in answer to your question, I would be flexible in terms of my schedule to try to make as many, if not all, meetings.
and what's the notice you give plenty of notice when the meetings are
Yes,
scheduled.
once a person is appointed, we do provide them with the meeting schedule. And we also have orientation, but they do get notified in advance.
Like a year in advance, right? I mean, like all those meetings are set, there are certain day out of the month and
Yes.
they're always at like the same time, like 9:30 in
Yes.
the morning.
Yes.
Yeah,
Something
code
like that.
enforcement's pretty regular because we have cases that continually move through with building department, work without permits, things of that nature. So it's usually that first week of the month for code enforcement. The other groups are more flexible. They may not meet as frequently, so it's not like a hard schedule, but we make sure all of them meet quarterly outside of the Board of Appeals and Adjustment, because that's really driven by an appellate or an interpretation of zoning code.
So you would always know well in advance when those meetings are scheduled and they're always scheduled at like 9:30 in the morning. I mean, I think occasionally they get canceled if there's nothing to be heard, but rarely does one pop up without a lot of notice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I guess we'll call, if we could call the second candidate.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you could state your name.
Thank
where
you all for
live,
what
and-
you do and making this town what it is. I got interested in doing this when I met some of you at a food truck event a couple of years ago.
So if you could just state your name and where you live.
My friend is Miles Schlam, and he was telling me all these good things, because you got to serve your town. I've been here going on 20 years. My wife has been here.
Excuse me, for the record, please state your
My
name.
name is Michael Thorson.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my wife's been here 18 years, but before I get too far, I want to thank the doctor, because my wife has just beat breast cancer for the second time. So thank you for waiting. But anyway, so she was smart enough. She moved here before I did, and then I moved in with her, fell in love with the town. I don't know if I used to be a marathon runner, and I'd run up and down the roads. And then now I'm the crazy guy in a red kayak. I don't know if anyone's ever seen me out there, but some people have said. Anyway, what got me interested in this position? My father was a World War II vet, and he had his MBA from Northwestern, a very smart man, and he had worked in engineering most of his life. And towards the end, he said he was leaving his job, and I said, "What are you going to do?" He goes, "It's time to get back." So he started a business in the inner city of Chicago. He was so committed. It was a very in the 70s, a really bad economic situation for employment for the inner city. And he was so dedicated. I still have a copy of his business card. Wasn't black. The writing was in white. His vice president wasn't black man. He worked with Jesse Jackson Community Renewal just to do something for the community. And I think that's what set me off on my career. I've been a professional fundraiser for 20 years, working with community organizations, volunteering. And I spent, I was doing capital campaigns, which are bricks and mortar, building new schools, building new churches across the country. And certainly there's a lot of construction within that. And as a fundraising consultant, I was working up at Palm Beach Opera when a man approached me who owned a big construction company. And he said, "I'd like you to work for me on the side." And he insisted, and I took it, and I learned a lot more about construction and how important codes are to upholding the peace and tranquility and the value of real estate. And I know everyone here, their biggest investment is in their homes, like for us. But the other thing that happened was when COVID hit as a fundraiser and more of a consultant, that was starting to dry up. And a friend of mine said he was making a lot of money doing insurance adjusting. And I'm about as far as an insurance adjuster as you can be, but I got my license. And during some hurricanes, I went out and did adjusting. And I saw firsthand some devastation up in the Carolinas and some in Georgia, and a lot of it came down to, not being up to code. So I saw a bit of that. But mainly, I think that the code enforcement in this town, and, as I said, I'm friends with Miles Schlam, and he told me a bit about it, but it upholds the value of our homes. It upholds it's what makes Highland Beach what it is. I mean, I grew up in an affluent town, and over time, I remember my father was born there, his father was born there. And we just kind of saw, they just stopped paying attention to the little things that made Hinsdale what it was. And I want to be part of either this, I want to help in the town that I've decided to call home forever. And so if it's not this, I'd be glad to consider another one. But I think my insurance adjusting and some of the construction that I've been involved in might bring a little to the table.
Thank you very much. We'll go through each of the commissioners. Commissioner Goldberg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thorson.
Thank you.
For coming by and for putting your name in. We're very, very appreciated.
Thank you.
So I have some questions,
Oh.
since we have two remarkable men before us today. And we have, I note that you've indicated that you have interest. I know we've asked to prioritize which one is 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4. So, and you also just indicated that if there were other committees that
Yeah.
would be open to it.
I just want to help.
So there is 2 vacancies for 3-year terms. And an unexpired term for 1 year on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Would that interest you?
That would be very interesting. Yes.
As well, there appears to be also on the planning board.
I like that too.
Now, that is a vacancy for an unexpired term, which would go to May of 2024. So that would be a shorter term.
Yeah, I'm full-time. I'm here.
You're here full time.
I'm a mile down the road.
Okay. So you would be open to that. That's wonderful. You did also indicate other boards, but
Yeah.
those are the 2. So you'd have a choice as well. to
I think
do that.
code enforcement came to me because of what I saw when I was looking at hurricane damage, and it left a mark on me because it wasn't the building so much as the people that were impacted. But this is my home. I wanna contribute. I wanna help. So if there's other things that are more appropriate
Okay,
or more
well,
available.
thank you. I don't have any other specific questions, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you. You go out all days on the kayak, even the rough days out?
I enjoy the rough days the most. And
Do you?
the boaters think I'm insane because all the other kayaks are going away. I kind of go towards them and I ride the wake.
Yeah, I see you once in a while out there. I
You
see
do.
that out there when on the ocean. No, it's commended. You're just like both candidates are equal. I mean, your experience too. I mean, you're doing all the volunteer work for the cleanups of the beach, the Salvation Army, which is, and of course, the veterans. It's a big item there. But I would just like to see one of you. I don't want to lose either one of you. I'd like to see one of you go to the other boards.
Sure.
That's my only thing. I think I got no other questions.
Yeah, you're both eminently qualified. I will say that because this is code enforcement, I do like the idea that you've had some experience in construction
Mhm.
and in adjusting, where you
Yeah.
can see what happens when the rules are not followed.
It's sad.
So yeah, this is a difficult decision.
It is. It is.
It should
And-
be. It's an important position.
And I'm so happy that people who haven't been involved in the town are coming forward to be involved.
Thank
And not because something crazy is going on, but just because you want to.
It doesn't run
And
itself.
It doesn't run itself, and I applaud both of you for doing that. Because I
Thank you.
think you're right, giving back.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for volunteering. There was a time when we didn't have very many volunteers, so this
Oh.
is just such a breath of fresh air to have two very qualified people to come forward. So thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
volunteering. I guess my question to you is, are you here full-time?
Yes.
You are. Okay, and so you would be available for these monthly meetings that
This is
occur?
my favorite, no, summer's my favorite time of year, unlike everyone else. I got used to the heat years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess my question also is, so we do have this vacancy on the planning board. I know we do have someone who is interested in that, but I guess my question to you is between code enforcement and planning board, any preference
I'd be good
on
for
that?
either because, yeah, I put that one.
Oh, number
They-
two.
They're
And
really,
the only thing about Board of Adjustment Appeals is it's not very active, and you can't serve on both of those, correct?
Well, we say no, but boy, we're having a hard time filling the Board of Appeals
I
and
know it's been
Adjustment, so.
open for a long time.
oh,
Yeah.
I like that.
So
one.
maybe, you know. I don't think we've prohibited it. We would prefer not to, but
Generally prefer, because there was potential of a conflict,
conflict.
but he's interested in the Board of Appeals and Adjustment, you just said.
Yeah, so you may want to make sure we grab this one.
Yeah, we're having a really hard time filling, that vacancy.
I used to go up to the Palm Beach Board of Appeals when I was working with the builder and oh my God, the things I would hear up there. So I know how that works. It's always interesting. Contentious.
Now, I have a question.
Go
Does this
ahead.
have to be, would we have to, in order to make an appointment, is it possible without specific notice of being on the agenda?
An
Ye-
appointment for the Board of Adjustment and
Yes, you
Appeals.
can. You could
We
do
can
that.
make an appointment. So we could appoint Dr. Kaufman to. Oh, we have other applicants for the, for Board of Adjustment and Appeals?
And
Yeah, planning board, I think we do definitely have, but we have 3 vacancies for the Board of Adjustment Appeals, so.
You're safe. Again, everything,
that,
it's safe and lawful to make an appointment today.
okay.
Any thoughts on if we were to appoint you to the Board of Adjustment
I
Appeals?
think
And
that would be okay. I would just
Yeah.
have the question why it's so hard to fill.
I think because maybe I guess I don't want to speak for anyone. I don't know. I guess I don't really know why, if you guys have any comment as to his.
If I had to guess, it would be because they don't meet often.
Right, right. It's not a very active board, I guess is what I would guess.
Most
But I don't
people
know.
in this town do try and follow the rules. So they generally, when they have do planning, they try and plan so they don't need a variance, that they do it within the accepted parameters.
Smart way to do it.
I agree with that. That's how I've always done it.
Town attorney has something to say.
Yeah, so the conversation the three of us having over here is technically on today's agenda is a resolution for code enforcement, so you could do that. And if, for example, if you say this is the gentleman you want, then the next meeting we'll just do a resolution appointing him. We've already done the interview, so that would, Ronaldo, that make a point, okay. I want to keep Ronaldo happy.
Yes,
Okay.
me too, for sure. How does that sound? Mr. Thorson, would,
Yes.
since that was your second, choice, and since we do have
Yeah.
2 excellent candidates, and then this way we are blessed to have you both.
And I think you
Involved.
guys are so good at what you do that you probably know what looking at my qualifications and having that where I
Yes.
probably might be a better asset than the other places, so.
Yeah, I think that would work out well. Or That would be
I
my
think so.
recommendation.
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
Thank you for being so flexible.
yes, thank you
Yes.
very much.
And I volunteer a lot, so that's what you do.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Um,
Did you want me to stay any longer or no?
I don't think we need you to stay
Okay.
any longer, but we'll just, the plan is at the next meeting, we'll have a resolution prepared for the Board of Adjustment Appeals. You don't have to come forward. We've already interviewed you, so we'll make it official at the next meeting.
Okay, do I
So-
need to come to that? I
Nope,
mean,
no,
I would if I did.
no,
Okay.
no, there won't be
Okay.
any other.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And
Thank you.
thanks again for making Highland Beach with it.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay,
Okay.
so the resolution would be appointing Dr. Kaufman to the board, the Code Enforcement Board.
Mhm.
So if we could have a motion to that effect?
Move that we appoint Dr. Kaufman to the Code Enforcement
I
Board.
second that motion.
So the motion would be to approve resolution number 2023-033, appointing Mr. Kaufman to the Code Enforcement Board.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, since we skipped over our first presentation, we'll go ahead and have Ms. Erica Whitfield come forward to present the State of Education Report.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Erica Whitfield from District 4, Palm Beach County School Board. I apologize for being late. It's actually a very tricky childcare day, which is actually all my fault. So I can't blame anyone else for setting the school schedule. But that is what was holding me back today. So thank you all so much for having me. This is something that I really like to do with my municipalities every year. Just kind of come and give you an opportunity. I'll give you some information about the schools and what's going on. I know you don't have a lot of children in schools in Highland Beach, but I still think it's very, very important considering how much your tax dollars do go toward the school system. And you need to understand that you're getting good value for those dollars. So I want to share that with you. So I'll share a little bit of information and then just really put it out for questions if you all have anything for me. What I passed out to you, or what is going to be passed out to you if you haven't received it down the line yet, is our state legislative priorities. We as a school board come up with our legislative priorities every year. We go to the state, usually on Palm Beach County days. I don't know if any of you will be there right in the beginning of January, but that gives us an opportunity to kind of share with our legislators the things that are important for our school board. So you'll see the list that we have come up with right there, and I'll go over some of the ones that I think are really, really important. So the most important thing I want you to know about this past year is the focus that we've put on kindergarten readiness. And you'll see on the back side of your page there, it's one of my favorite things to talk about VPK. VPK is our voluntary pre-kindergarten program that the state funds about 3 hours a day. We are always asking them to make it a full day for our students. We find that parents really do need to put their children in care. My daughter started like 2.5. We put her in the one I have right now. The other one started actually at 1 because I was working full time back then. But the 2.5, she was 2.5 when she started. And I felt like that was a good time for her to start in childcare. 3 hours a day is only good if you have a mom or a dad or grandma who can come pick you up at noon. Noon is a tricky time to get somebody. So parents are always trying to figure that out. And I think what we're seeing with our students is that every year when school starts, we take all our kindergartners and we give them a test. And that test is called the Flickers. It's a Florida State readiness test to see if you're ready for kindergarten. And only about half our students in Palm Beach County come in ready for kindergarten. So that's recognizing numbers and letters, knowing what sounds the letters make, sitting still, raising your hand, knowing how to ask to go to the bathroom. Things like that are really basic, but they take a lot of time from a teacher if they come in not knowing those things. So asking them to give us a full day, fund a full day, I think is actually be very valuable for our students, especially here where we're only at about 50%. We're pretty traditional for the rest of the state too. Nobody's really beating us on that in a large scale in an urban center. You'll see in some of our wealthier communities that you'll have a really high number, but then it balances out with our poorer communities that have a very low number. So quality childcare is really important. So this past year, we started working with our Early Learning Coalition in Palm Beach County, an amazing organization. They're located right here in Boynton Beach. They are a state organization that has different chapters. We have a chapter that covers our entire county. Working with them, we've actually put out the word to let people know about kindergarten, starting kindergarten on time, making sure that they know which school is theirs and signing up. We did a big marketing campaign around it. We also got a bunch of kindergarten readiness kits that we sent home with any families that signed up for kindergarten so that and they're really kind of cool. It took me a while to get them, but I was able to do it with my 3-year-old. We had like little letters and numbers and little worksheets that they could work on. And then we put together videos to show parents if they weren't sending their kid, or even if they were sending their kids, activities that they could do, lessons that they could do. So this is crucially important to me as a school board member, really, because every kindergarten teacher you talk to says, man, I wish they had gone to a good preschool program because that makes their lives easier. And when a student starts behind, they tend to stay behind. And so we don't want them to start behind. So that's been one of our big focuses of something that we are going to be working towards. We got data back this year after we did all of those efforts, and we saw district-wide an increase of kindergarten readiness go up by 3 percentage points. So it was very exciting when you're talking about the hundreds of thousands of kids that we deal with, to see that kind of numbers going up just from this little effort that we made. And so, and obviously all the work that ELC already does. So that's been a really big thing. So that's one thing that's on our legislative priorities that's important. The other thing that's really important on our legislative priorities for us is always funding. We always ask the state for more funding. We are ranked 47th in the country as far as funding for per student basis. We get about $8,000 per student. Luckily, here in Palm Beach County, we have our referendums that you've all been so nice to vote for and approve multiple times now. So we're in our, depending on how you count it, second or third time going around. With it, those funds actually go towards teacher pay, they go towards safety and security and mental health. The most recent version of our referendum came out after Marjory Stoneman Douglas. That was a very big tragedy that then led to a refocus on how safe our schools are and what goes into making sure that a student who is struggling the way that the perpetrator at Marjory Stoneman Douglas was, that we catch those kind of people earlier. So that really goes into the mental health. So with the funding that you all gave us, we do subsidize our security programs. We get some funding from the state for mental health and security, but it's never enough. And so in order to meet the mandates from the state, which include a police officer in every school, before Stoneman Douglas, we had one for every 3 elementary schools. Now we have one in every elementary school. We used to have one for a high school. Now we have, depending on their size, 2 to 3. Middle schools, same deal, how big they are. We have to find them. We also have partnerships with all our municipalities where we have police that'll come in through those agreements and help bring up our numbers of police on the campuses. And, you know, some of our schools, 3,500 kids go to John I. Leonard. So we're talking a very large campus. So we're asking the state to help fund some more of those security implementations. One thing we added this year is metal detectors into our schools. They're not like metal detectors like you'd see at the TSA when you go through there. It's more of like going into Kohl's, right? So there's like those little things that stand up on either side and you can kind of go through quickly. So they just catch if there's something big that we need to slow down and, you know, check. So they'll pull students aside and just make sure they don't have a weapon on them when they're going into campus. We did a pilot program at 4 high schools. It went very well. It actually didn't slow down the entrance into school very much. With our pilot program, we realized we needed more staff time. So we are giving overtime to people who come in early to do that. We had to set aside additional funds, but now we're in the middle of purchasing for all of our high schools. So that'll be coming in this upcoming year. Again, we're asking the state to help us assist in that because we do think in an urban school center where we do have weapons found on campuses, usually around like 50 a year. This is important, 50 throughout the whole school system. So that's something that we want to do. In addition, mental health resources, it's kind of like Pandora's box. Once we put a behavioral health person in every school, now we are seeing all this need, especially post-COVID. COVID was very traumatic for our children. It affected their grades, it affected their mental health, it affected their ability to feel the community feelings of, you know, collaboration among their peers and, you know, belonging and all of that. So having mental health practitioners within our school has become crucial. Also, there's a long wait list that can happen with that. So not every school has one, but there are kids that are on wait lists now. When I talk to them, we talk about, you know, how hard is it to get somebody to see you? It can be very difficult. We also have organizations outside the schools that come into the schools. We call them co-located therapists that we pay for. It's about 9 organizations that have ownership over a school where they'll send in a practitioner and they'll do an even deeper therapy with those students. that is one of the best practices we learned from Stone Douglas that we feel was really important and that needed to be addressed. But we're not seeing just kids who are, thinking about doing something harmful to a school. We have kids going through divorce. They may have a domestic violence situation. There may be abuse in some situation. So having that available is really crucial for our kids. And then we can refer them out to outside sources if we need to. The other thing I really want to mention on here is just our teachers being able to fund those things really important is been very important for us to make sure that they have as much funding as they need. As you know, Palm Beach County is very difficult to live in, especially for those that are making low wages. We are trying our best to move that up as much as possible. Obviously, the referendum really does help a lot, but having additional funds for that is really crucial. Another funding thing I want to mention is the school vouchers. You may have heard about that this past year. The state put in a voucher program, which was always in place in a lower capacity. So we always had the ability for people to be able to come into the school and say that they didn't want to attend public school, they wanted to go to private school, and they wanted to take the money that they paid into taxes with them to that private school. So it was very difficult to do before. This past year, they just made it very easy to do. So there's no financial requirements for it anymore. The paperwork is much less than it was. And so you can go as a student in a private school and just say that you want to take the funds that you would have gotten, that $8,000 that I was mentioning, and actually get a check. One of my best friends, her daughter goes to Benjamin. And so I said, you should apply. Why wouldn't you apply? So she did get the check. It was very interesting to see because she definitely didn't need the money, but to get that check, it was interesting for me to understand that it did work and they were able to do it. Not every private school in the community has decided to accept those dollars yet. That is probably going to expand over time though, as they start getting more comfortable and seeing what the accountability behind it is, which is very little. They will, I think, start accepting it in more places. But right now, that number has been very manageable. In Palm Beach County, we still had growth of students this year. We were worried there'd be a huge hit, but I think we have a really good service. I think our students really enjoy it. My kid goes to our schools. I love it. So having it's really created like more of a need for marketing on our part. Like let people know what a good service we're providing. But we did have growth this past year, even with the vouchers of about 1,000 kids district wide. So we were very proud of that. But one of the things that we asked the state legislature for is to continue to fund the voucher program fully. So if they want to give the funds to the students, to the students to take to private schools, that's fine. We're good with that. This past year, they allocated $400 million for it, and they haven't gone over that, which is great. But we do anticipate as this continues to grow, right now, if every private school student in the state took the vouchers, it would be a $4 billion hit to the state of Florida. And so we don't want that to come out of the funds that we have, because over time, what they've done is they'll guess how many students are going to be attending public schools. And then if the number changes, they'll just prorate how much we get. And so we're hopeful that they won't do that. So this past year was fine, worked out great. We're all good. We just want to keep that up. So that's one of the other really important things, because the amount of funds could be detrimental to the system if it was all going to the private schools. So I think that's pretty reasonable ask, and I hope that they will continue doing that. Okay, I don't want to over talk on all of these things, and I wanted to give you guys a chance for questions. So you have the list here if you have any questions about those, or really anything about your schools. I did look up today. I was kind of like, I've never thought about where kids in Highland Beach would go to school. So you're actually districted for Boca High, which is a fabulous school, Boca Middle, which is a great school we're very happy with, and J.C. Mitchell is your elementary school. So I think you could be very proud that in your area, if there was someone who came here and wanted to go to public school, they have a really good option available, schools that kids are fighting to get into when they're not living in the area. So I just wanted to share that with you, that they are very, very good schools, and you should be proud to share that with your constituents. You guys have any questions?
I do. With respect to, you mentioned that on the voucher system, and you mentioned that private schools have been a little resistance. What have you found to be the reason for that?
Some of them are very worried about the accountability. One of the schools that I have a friend who sends their children to St. Andrews, kind of in Boca near here. And they have said no specifically because they don't want to see the state come in and have any kind of say over what goes on in their system. And they don't want to have to open up their books or anything like that. So that's been their hesitancy. But I do think that watching the other big private schools that have gone through it this past year is going to make them more likely, if not this year, then maybe the next. So, and I think the parental pressure is going to be very real because, my friend who's sending her kid to Benjamin, I think that's $35,000 a year, $8,000 off of that is nothing to sneeze at. So I think when they start seeing that, they're going to maybe want to see it. So it's up to the private schools to decide. But the
So the-
process has been happening.
So the funds go directly to the school rather to the students.
Yes, unless they are in a homeschool situation.
That was my next question.
Yes, so
What happens then?
homeschool can take the funds, or if it's, if there's some other type of schooling that they're in, that it would go straight to the parents.
And are students also, is there the flexibility extended to attend another public school, perhaps in another geographic
Yes.
area in the county?
We have done that forever. Usually you have to have a reason. So, bullying is a reason you feel like you're not in a safe situation. That's one way that we can move people. We also have 330 choice programs in Palm Beach County, which is how my daughter goes to school. I live in Lake Worth Beach. She goes to school at Suncoast and Riviera Beach. It's the best school in the county, in my opinion. It's a wonderful IB school, very, very challenging, but we applied to go and she went for her middle school, same deal. She went to an IB school, so the International Baccalaureate. It's like an internationally known curriculum that we pay a ton of money for as a school district to keep going. So it's something that I think is very valuable. We obviously have Dreyfus, which is the best art school just around, unbelievable place. And then all of the schools around here, they all have choice programs too. So it's really, if you're looking for a school that's different than the school you're at, you can start thinking about, what am I interested in as a student? Is it arts? Is it finance? We have finance programs. Is it, languages? My daughter did languages for elementary school. She was in a choice program. So we have just a plethora of options. So that's one way you can choose a different school. And then I always tell people, if you hate your school and you just want to call me and we want to talk it out and we'll figure it out, we're going to find you a school to go to. So that happens every year, where, I try to make this position and the school board as open and responsive to the population as possible. So if you just do not want to go to your school, I'm not going to make you do that. Nobody's going to make you go to the school. So we're going to find one. So we have something called controlled open enrollment that really helps a lot. In April, we look at all the schools in the county and see who has less than 90% participation in their school. And they've got some space and we'll assign you there and you can go. Sometimes you have to do your own transportation. With the choice programs, we'll bus you. But if you just want to go to a school, then the parents are responsible for transportation, but we'll send you and we'll let you into those schools. So, there's limits. Obviously, Dreyfus is generally full. Suncoast is generally full if you don't get in. But we've managed to make it happen sometimes even there. So, we do our very best to
Well,
really be a servant to this community.
I am so pleased that the state of Florida has this flexibility in the attention for education. As a former native of New York State, which is in total chaos in my opinion, on the education and the choice of schools, this is just wonderful. As far as the pre-kindergarten, do you have any feel about the likelihood of this the full day funding?
It's getting closer. I've actually been I've been on the school board now for 9 years. I just had my anniversary, I think actually last week, of being on the school board. And it's something I've asked the commission or the legislature for every year. I've actually served on the Early Learning Coalition and done a few programs to promote early learning in the communities. I feel like we have some good representation. I think it's a good bipartisan issue when you start talking about just childcare and quality education. I think it really is something that everyone can get behind. We have some good, I know Gail Harrell's been a big proponent of early childhood for a long time. So I think we have a shot this year. I really do think that there's been some movement in it. So fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Erica. You answered two of my questions. I was going to ask you about the pre-K full-time. I'm a firm believer, and also resource officers. I'm a big I think resource officers are very important, especially now, even before all this trouble we had in the schools, because it makes the student think the officer is a friend and not be afraid of officer. Then plus you got the safety aspect. I watched you on YouTube the other night,
Oh, you did.
on an interview, and you were amazing. You answered all the tough questions about gender, books being banned.
Thank you.
And you're there for safety, security. I mean, all the topics, the hot topics you handled very well. I'd just like to thank you and being on the board, and I think you're perfect.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I really like the idea of a choice program. I know when I lived in New Jersey, they didn't call it that, but they had special programs in different schools and others were neighborhood schools, and they found that they got kids going all over the town,
We do.
and it worked out perfectly. No one was forced to go to any one school.
We want you to be happy. I
Yeah.
want you to be happy. And if you notice today, there's very little traffic because there's no school, because we're usually shipping kids all over the place. So
But
It's,
so
much better.
it worked out, other than the high school, which they only had one of.
Yeah.
It worked out very well.
wonderful.
So I think that's
That's
it's
actually
perfect.
one of the benefits of a huge system too, is that we have a lot of options. Just we're full of options. So I always try to like, well, what is your child interested in? What would they like to do? Where, where do you live and how far are you willing to drive? Like we can have conversations like that
This
in a
is-
big system.
on a much larger scale. This was just for one town. But it works both ways. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
Number of teachers, are you losing teachers? What are you doing about retention? I mean, that's a big issue.
It's a wonderful question, and thank you for bringing it up. One of the things that's on this list that I didn't mention to you all that really means a lot to me is the idea of growing our own. So we will train people that are in education, but maybe are not a teacher yet. We will help to get them through. And one of the things I really want to see happen, and Miami-Dade does this well, and actually Duval County, I know has a program that does this well, where they will have university programs specifically designed to bring in teachers for that community. So we're working with FAU and other local universities to create that kind of grow your own teacher mentality. What I would like to see the state legislature do is put some additional funds behind it to really put a huge emphasis on teachers, because, and in Miami-Dade, they have this program where if a student is coming out of school, out of university, and they do not have a plan, they grab them, put them through a little class, and then they show them the opportunities in education. Because we are losing teachers. It is, it's a very hard job. I don't think people realize if you spend a day teaching, and those of you who are teachers, it is active. You're never sitting down. You're go, go, go. You're part of the student's family. They're telling you their secrets and their problems. There's so much to deal with. Plus, state mandates that are always changing. We got a new curriculum last year, so that's been an impact on having to learn new curriculum. Everybody actually really likes the new curriculum, but you have to learn it. That's a big problem. So lots of trainings that go on. It's very high intensity days. And then they usually have to take homework. If you're going to be a good teacher, you're going to be bringing homework every night. So I'm very grateful for people who do it. We've been able to really do well in Palm Beach County with our referendum, because long-term teachers are getting an additional $10,000 a year into their check. That's really made a big difference. This past year, we gave the highest raise in the state to our teachers, which is so impressive because we have an amazing CFO. Never, ever, ever say mean things about your CFO. They're amazing people. What they can do. So our CFO is brilliant. She actually just won an award for the state that our superintendent, who used to be our CFO, also won 9 years ago. So we have a really good, strong financial backing in Palm Beach County schools. They were able to give a 7% raise with a 3% bonus to all of our teachers. And we just now are finalizing, we have 6 unions. Some of them are real unions and some of them are bargaining groups that they just chat with. But the rest of the groups are all coming through right now. And so the raises are going to be similar, probably closer to 5%, 6% for our lower paid workers, but also getting a bonus. But that's been crucial in keeping them, retaining them, and having them realize that Palm Beach County, since I've been on the board, we have given 3% raises every single year. if not more. So 4%, 5%, now 7%, which is actually crazy. I can't believe we did it. But it's been the way we can show our teachers, because for many years before that, they went years and years without any raises. And I think that's stagnated people and frustrated them, and they wanted to leave because of it.
Yeah, I believe that education is one of the most important things we can do because that's our future. And if we don't educate these kids, then we're doomed.
Absolutely. And the value for your residents here, I think, comes in with all of these people that can, come work for them over here, or support the community that they participate in, become their doctors, become their lawyers, everything that they need. So I think there's a value in the money that you all are putting towards this education system, and we
Oh.
thank you for it.
Yeah, as I said, I think that educating our kids is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing we can do. So thank you for
Thank you.
what you do for that.
Yes, welcome. So there's more kids than you think. I have 3 kids in the public school system,
That's
and
wonderful.
three kids. Yeah. I've got a senior, a junior, and a freshman. And in my neighborhood, there's probably more than what you would think,
Awesome.
that are also, in the public school system. Yeah, my kids are currently enrolled in Boca High, amazing school. So thank you
Good,
very
I'm so
much
glad.
for such a good school. And I think one of the things, in my opinion, that makes it such a great school, is I guess you consider it the curriculum, just the roster of classes that are available to the kids. And, what I really appreciate is, I mean, you can have, the regular classes, and then you've got like, I don't know, accelerated, and, all these different levels, up to the courses that you can get college credit for, the advanced placement and the ACE. I'm very grateful for the ACE diploma that's offered at Boca High. And for those that don't know, there are 2 ways to get the Bright Futures Scholarship. One way is if you get a high enough score on the standardized testing, which unfortunately, I hate to admit that my kids will not get in on that criteria. But the ACE diploma, if you work really hard, maybe you don't get the standardized testing score. But if you get the ACE diploma, which is a number of classes, which thankfully Boca High offers enough of those classes, you can get the Bright Futures through the ACE diploma. So thank you very much for offering the ACE diploma. I think it's a really great curriculum. When my kids come home from school, I hear them talking more about their ACE classes, because they, it's like travel and tourism, it's media studies, it's a lot of like pretty interest other than like your English, things like that. So I think our high schools are definitely, Palm Beach County is doing a really good job with those types of things that are offered. I guess one thing, so I have a senior doing college prep, and, that's been a challenge. That's definitely been a challenge, applying to schools and all that's required, navigating through all that. And I think we have one college advisor. So, I mean, I think beefing up that program would really help. And then I noticed here, there's support for the SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test, but I didn't see the ACT. Like, is there any plan to also provide support for the other test, the ACT test?
So I think both of them are paid for. There may just be an issue about keeping that one going and the funding behind it. So there may be, I'm not actually
Or even
exactly sure.
support for it? Because I think, I don't know
Yeah.
if there's.
We do have both. We're not getting rid
I
of
know
them.
you have, well, so, okay, so I mean, I guess that's just something
I could find out
maybe
more about
to, it seems like the kids more and more are taking the ACT, and I just noticed on your page that you only mentioned the SAT.
Yeah,
So
that's a
if
good
we could
point.
continue the support for the ACT, but I do know that some of the colleges are starting to make those optional anyway, so I'm not really sure,
Yeah, they do make it optional, and you
not
can.
the Florida schools,
No,
but
many
yeah, some
places
other
do.
schools.
Yeah.
So you mentioned early on that Florida is 47th ranking in the funds
Yeah, from the state. Mhm.
from the state to the school,
Mhm. Per student.
schools
per
and,
student basis,
in
yeah.
general. How do the salaries for the teachers rank? Do they also rank 47th or?
So we in Palm Beach County, actually, we have control over our teacher's salary, so we do a little bit better. And then there is a very, very small thing called the district cost differential. It actually gives us an additional $40 million, $42 million a year. And what they do, and hopefully this will continue, what they do is they rank all of the cost of living in every county in Florida, and then they pick a base number, and if you're in a one that's really like easy to live in and cheaper, they'll take down your percentage funding. And then for us, it's very expensive to live here, they'll kick us up, but it's just a little bit. We have a $5 billion budget, so 42 million is not a huge number. But that is one piece where we get a little additional funding from the state. On that teacher pay, there was a very large push from DeSantis in his first term, where we were working towards getting funds to bring up starting teacher pay. I'm proud to say our starting teacher pay is now 51,500, which is pretty good to right out of college to come in and get that funds. But there's a bit of a compression that happens after that. So we were able to raise starting teacher pay, but we couldn't deal with compression as much as we needed to. So the teachers who had been there 5-10 years were only making like 55,000. So we're at the time it was like 47, and it was only like a $5,000 to $10,000 difference. And so to have been there for 15 years and really not making that much more than somebody who you're actually having to train can be very disheartening. So those additional funds from the referendum, we were able to kick in and go up to $10,000 over 10,000 for people who've been there 10 years or more, 5,000 for people who've been there 5 years or more. That was just reapproved last year, so we've got another 3 years on that. It's a 4-year referendum. Those funds really do make it so that we can be higher and more competitive. So we usually are beating out Broward and definitely Martin, and so we're pulling teachers in a little bit better than other people. Some people are willing to cross the county lines to go to their job. So we're able to hold on to some more of those teachers and be really competitive. But as just to state, I know you're talking about New York. I mean, the people in New York, they're obviously making a ton more money. They are the highest on the list of states, but they're up in the $100,000 range for people. And even our 30-year teachers are only like in the 80 if they've been here a long time and grandfathered in. There's a lot of different salary schedules, so it gets confusing. But what we would like to do is really show teachers that if you've been here and you're willing to put in the time, you're going to see your pay go up. And also we participate in FRS, which you guys probably understand pretty well. But it's those top 5 years that average out to be your retirement pay. And so they want to get 5 years at a decent pay so that you're starting to see that. So I think we have to show a path for teachers that maybe you're willing to not make millions, and you're not going to be wealthy, which is unfortunate. I wish teachers were, but you're still going to be able to have a nice life, and that life with a good retirement at the end of it. So I think that's really important. So we do a little bit better here in Palm Beach County, to answer your question, but compared to the rest of the country, it depends where you go, depends on the state. Some states are even worse than we are, as far as like Mississippi is not as great. They're usually the ones that are beneath us on the list. And I just want to say about ACE, one of the things that's great about these large schools that have so many students, we can offer so many different things. It's like the economies of scale. So we can offer AP class after AP class and ACE class and all of these things. So your students have a chance to be a part of those. When you have a really small school, it can be difficult to do that. So some of our smaller schools that we're competing with, they just can't offer the same things that we can. So it can be a huge benefit to be in a huge system like this.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was in school, we had vocational training.
Mhm.
And not every kid wants to or can go to college.
Absolutely.
But they need some sort of training to get a job,
Yep.
to do something, I mean, you hear about kids who go to work at McDonald's, and if the cash register didn't tell them how much change to give, they couldn't make change. And that's distressing. So what are we doing to give these kids a career path. You know, maybe it's accounting,
Yeah,
so you
we're,
can be a bookkeeper or auto mechanics or something that you can get a good job with decent pay.
so we are doing fairly good. I would not say we're doing great. We're getting there on careers and technology or vocational programs. So we are just put in we're putting in a new center right here. It's called Delray Full Service. Used to be the old Carver High School. It's right at Atlantic and 95. We just decided to put another $50 million into that program and to the one up in West Palm Beach. So those will be new vocational centers that are going to be created, kind of revamped, redone, much nicer. So all of that is getting done. So we did the Delray site. We've done half of it. The other half is about to be redone. We're also respecting the history and the culture of the area and keeping the buildings. So that's been part of the expense for it. Same thing with the West Palm area. One of the things that's on the back of your legislative priorities at the bottom is the West Tech, growing the workforce in the Great Glades. That is an entire program out in the Glades specifically focused on vocational programming. We actually have been doing really well around our adult education, which also happens in many locations throughout the county. If you all remember Chuck Shaw, we named a building after him in West Palm. That is an adult education programming, which is all around the vocational technology. So we've got electrical, we've got HVAC, we have a CDL license. You can drive those really big 18-wheelers, which I would never, ever do. Very scary, but we have those. So there's lots of different programs that you can participate in there. We also do GED and ESOL, so English speakers of another language, so we can teach them English. So if you have people coming into this country that need to be, integrated in society and be able to, speak the language, we want to make sure we're getting them in there, getting them training. So we're teaching them English while teaching them a skill, and then hopefully getting them involved in the community in a job that can make money for their families. So I think it's been amazing to see the growth, and there's also quite a bit of funding coming from the state for it. We received the only school district in the state to receive a grant around career education funding. We got $1 million last year. So that was a really big boon to our programming, but you're going to see all of these programs opening up. And then we do always have vocational within the school system as well. At Park Vista, you can take automotive as your main programming, so you can get that kind of a degree. And we always want students to walk out of school, and I really strongly believe this, with something that makes money right away. So certificate programs or things that are we actually have 2 programs that do firefighting schools. So you walk out and you can be a firefighter right away. So it's been really good. So it can be high school students or adults, but we are really focusing on it. The reason why I say we're not as great as we could be is Broward has these really competitive programs, and we want to be like them. So we see those programs and we kind of have an eye on the prize to go bigger and really create like these technical centers. So that's what's happening in Delray and the Roosevelt program in West Palm. It's just not quite there yet.
That's terrific, because for a lot of years, they stopped doing that,
Yeah, I know we're back in.
and it was missed.
Good.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just to carry on my line of thought about being 47th
Yeah.
ranking and funding, and, asking my question about how teachers' salaries rank, to keep that as a priority, to boost teacher pay as much as possible, because we want quality teachers teaching these programs. I feel like, yeah, it's been really, I saw it at the high school, for my kids' high school, they're having a hard time keeping these teachers, keeping them engaged, keeping them enthusiastic about teaching, and not always having their eye towards another career that will make them a lot more money. So I would like to see that continue to be a high legislative priority. And of course, the school safety and security. I mean, that is just so scary. What's been going on in the schools. I think the additional security personnel at the schools was a really good idea. So yeah, anything more that can be done to ensure the safety of the kids.
We have an amazing police chief right now. I'm very happy to have her. Sarah Mooney's her name. She was the West Palm police chief, and she's doing such a good job. I honestly am so thrilled to have her. She has the, for her deputy, we have someone who used to work at Boynton Beach, who was chief there. Now she's the deputy. So we have a really high level skill set within our school police, and they are recruiting police officers, and people want to come work for us. They're very happy.
That's
They
good.
like the work with the kids because, as you said, it's like you get a chance to be friends with the students and get to know them and be there when they have issues and be the first person that they think of when they think of a police officer, instead of somebody who maybe wasn't nice to their mom or dad at one point, or, you know, so this is a really important piece, and the police officers want to do that job that we've talked to. You know, and I think it's a special person. I think you have to not want the, like, you know, the high drama of, you know, like drug deals or whatever. This is just kids. So some police officers don't want that, but the ones that do, we're very happy to have them. And I think that's been, it's actually a really big strength of the last couple of years that we have within our system.
Yeah,
So-
something kind of unintended perhaps.
I
that,
know,
you
it's a
benef-
horrible
Unintended benefit.
reason we got there.
So, yeah, just in closing, you know, we definitely do here in Highland Beach send our kids to
Thank you.
Palm Beach County schools, public schools. So thank you for everything that you've done. You know, I really appreciate it. Yeah, and just it's a tough job, you know, being a teacher and doing what you do to advocate for these items. I know it's always a challenge. So
And if you
thank-
guys ever need me, please call. I'm here for you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
And happy
you very much.
Thanksgiving. Thank you for
Yes,
allowing
happy
me to come.
Thanksgiving.
too.
Thank you very much for coming. Okay, so moving on to our next item, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Thank you. Carl Johansson, 2358 South Ocean Boulevard. I'm here today to sort of give you an update from my point of view. I'll start off by saying that I represent Bird Beach Association as president, but I'm not here as in that capacity. I'm here as a single family resident, waterfront property owner. And I represent 13 other single family waterfront property owners in Bird Beach. And we're basically, I've given everybody a folder just to refresh you. The back part of it has the 14 letters that were sent to the former mayor, Mayor Hillman, approximately a year and a half ago, showing our opposition to the proposed concept number 5 in the document for the revised ordinances. And now number 5 is related to the 25-foot setback from accessory marine facilities. Each one of the property owners I've spoken to, and each one bought their property, not solely based on the 25-foot back, but it was one of the things they considered when they bought their property. It distinguished it from other towns nearby. And so they have a vested interest in keeping the 25-foot setback. This is what they bought. This is what when, for example, myself, when I revised my dock and I complied with the 25-foot setback. And when my neighbor built his new house just north of me, he complied with it. We've all complied with it. And we all want that to stay, the 25-foot setback. And it's important to keep the character of our neighborhood. When we started this process about 2 years ago, one individual came up with this concept idea, which I know this is not a meeting to address those issues, but it's to refresh you because something happened yesterday, which I'll get to. But it started out with just single-family waterfront residents and accessory marine facilities. Over the 2 years approximately, it's gathered strength and now includes multifamily. It's gathered more strength and includes condominium. And all of those have separate sets of needs. And we shouldn't really put them all together. So I attended a planning board meeting and expressed the views of Bird Beach Association. I was surprised that people didn't even know where Bird Beach was. Some thought it was across the intercoastal, Tropic Isle. It's quite distressing because I know all of you and many more people within the community and within the capacity of the town of Highland Beach. Let's get the residents involved. No one shows up to our meetings. No one has anything to say. For almost 2 years, I've been involved in this process. I'm the only one that comes up. We oppose this. I don't see the other side. There's no groundswell movement to propose and want the 10-foot setback. Now, I can understand if I had an opponent here or a group of people saying, we want the 10-foot. Well, who are you? It was one man who came up with a concept 2 years ago. Now we're here to oppose any legislation that would restrict or cancel out that 25-foot setback. So I attended the planning board meeting and I explained to them that most of us who live in Bird Beach are not here full time. We have other places that we live. But we come here because we love Highland Beach. I started out here in 1975 with a condo on the ocean and subsequently have had 2 private homes in Bird Beach. One of my pet peeves when I go to these meetings is, well, this is what's done in Boca Raton. This is what's done in Delray. This is what's done in Pompano or Deerfield. We're not those. We came here because of our ordinances. And if you buy a property here, you should know what you're buying. People should not suffer because you don't do your due diligence. So I explained to the planning board all of this, and I said, please let me know, because I'm out of the country, when, and hold off on having any presentation until we'll call snowbirds or whatever we call, come back and we can make our representation heard. So yesterday I was handed something you see in your portfolio that I gave you. And this is what was submitted on November 7th meeting in reference to the setback. I highlighted for you. No side setbacks for docks in the town-wide. No setback requirements. This is outrageous. So I went and met with the town board yesterday and pointed out in the same town ordinances, the town code of ordinances, the second page you have, I asked, let's see what the definition of a dock is. Here it is, a dock. Residential means an accessory structure, including boat lifts, built on or above water. So that seems to contradict what the proposal that the planning board gave you. So the planning town planner said, well, we have to change that. We have to change the definition to coincide with what their recommendation. So I want you to just carefully study those 2 documents, see if you can interpret it any different than I have. I also included in the packet a diagram of Bird Beach, so you know how extensive a plat of land it is. And I think that we should have that. You should be aware of that. So I want to say that the presentation of the planning board and their report back to you did not sound right to they're all confused. And I don't blame them individually because they're ordinary citizens. This is a complex matter. And this flaw that I pointed out to you is just one of the flaws. The second thing I mentioned to the town planner is, which I was hoping the planning board would do, is get an environmental impact study. We're all concerned about the environment. The more boats, the more pollution. Let's not encourage something that's going to deteriorate our environment. We have enough boats, enough homes that want boats. And if you want a boat, you buy a house that has it already there. But to disturb the quality of life of those of us who do not want boats in front of our homes or next to us for noise, odors, pollution, all the things that bring forward, especially the fish and wildlife that we need to preserve in our community. These things should be considered. Now, Ingrid Allen has done a lot of work, but there are a lot of flaws in the program as well.
So
She
Dr.
does-
Johansson, we do have a time limit.
Yeah,
Are you almost finished with your
almost finished.
presentation?
There are
Okay.
two things that Ingrid points out. These are only concepts. The second thing she mentions several times during a meeting, you have the ability to put no action on any one of these propositions. If you don't understand it, there's not enough input, there's not enough community swell behind it to support it, for whatever reason. So we're here, I'm here as a representative of Bird Beach to ask you on this particular item, 25-foot setback, no action would be welcome. Or at the least, have some consideration for our residents who have come forward to exempt them as a special consideration from the 10-foot setback. And in my situation, I'm only 80 feet, it's 8 feet. So we've talked about that. And so I think that's about all I want to say. I want to say that 82% plus of Bird Beach residents are opposing any change of this, but that could sink into you. And we really have a vested interest in our property, and we want our quality of life to continue. And finally, I invite each and every one of you, and I will be calling you, to come to my home and see visually what a dock is, what the setback is, and what we enjoy. To do away with that would be extremely harmful and detrimental. And I appreciate your time, and I just wanted to refresh you on some of the things. I've left out a lot of things, time consuming. I hope I don't have to come back, but if you want me back, I'll be happy to come back.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much
Doc.
for submitting your comment. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We really appreciate it. Any other public comments? Hearing none, moving on to announcements. Board vacancies, Board of Adjustment and Appeals. We have 2 vacancies for a three-year term and 1 vacancy for an unexpired term for September 21st, 2024, and hopefully one of those has been filled. Planning Board, we do have 1 vacancy for an unexpired term ending May 4th, and hopefully we have that filled. So meetings and events coming up, November 23rd, 24th, Town Hall is closed for Thanksgiving. Our next meeting is December 5th at 1:30 of the Town Commission meeting. December 7th at 9:30 in the morning, Financial Advisory Board regular meeting. And December 7th, everyone mark your calendars. Please join us
Mingle and
for the Mingle and Jingle holiday event at St. Lucie Catholic Church. And that starts at 5:30. We'll have trolleys, lots of good food, and a great time we will all have together. No, there's no board action reports. Next item is ordinances. We don't have anything there right now. Consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the November 7th minutes?
No.
No, seeing none. Can we have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes from November 7th.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to unfinished business, the fire rescue implementation update.
We'll start with chief and then I will get into the other secondary issues around fire service.
Afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Quick update for you. Start with construction. The drywall installation is ongoing. We've already put in a lot of the infrastructure for that, so we're putting on insulation, and then getting an inspection, and then we'll be closing up the walls. Roof, the temporary drying is done. We should have the rest of it, one section of it done by the end of the week, so it'll be done by the end of the week. We're wrapping up installation of building services, HVAC, AC, wires, high voltage, low voltage, all the conduits are being put in place. That's being wrapped up. All these have to be inspected before we can close up the walls. About those inspections going on this week and into next week. And exterior stucco, we began today. You'll see the rubbing up some of the defects in walls, and then it'll begin actually stuccoing later on this week to get that finished up and done. Emergency vehicles, well, you see your rescues out front. So delivered yesterday. Paint looks good. We'll have it for the mingle jingle. We'll bring it out and open it up, put some of the equipment in there so we can answer questions and do tours, EKGs, whatever, just to kind of get people excited about it. The fire truck, its paint job is scheduled to begin. We'll deliver it on December 1st. We got it officially confirmed today, this morning. And so I'll head up there December 1st in Daytona to receive the truck, inspect it, make sure there's no damage or anything. That will begin the process of decals, lettering, and should have it down here hopefully by mid to late December, maybe early January to get it all done. We'll have that to show off as well. Personnel, we finalized the job offer letters, benefits package, payment packages. So we're making those offers this week for the captains because they're ready to go. We have the background on the drivers are done. We are doing the physicals right now, medical physicals, to make sure they're fit and ready for work, fit for duty. And we reopened the applications because we need a few more applicants. Because again, after the background, you find things out that you really didn't know during the interview. So we need about a couple, 3, 4 more people. So we've already had, I think, 28 applicants. So we have plenty of people to play with as far as getting the good applicants for that. So we should be finishing that up in the next couple of weeks and getting that ready. Building inspections. So our fire marshal will be making appointments through this week and start visiting the condominiums and the HOAs starting next week. And that's going to run, probably 1 or 2 per day for the next few weeks until we get a good idea of where we are with some of the issues. So we're addressing it as we go along. Other than that, I think we're making good progress. Construction wise, we are unofficially a little bit ahead of schedule. So I think our closeout date for the TCO we're still on track. Personnel wise, getting people hired, I think we've run into a little bit of snags, but that's why we started early, because we expected that, with background and interviews and all that stuff, we'll find some issues that we want to resolve, but we have a lot of good candidates still applying, so we'll make that process happen. And I will leave it at that. I'll let the manager take over.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Thank you, Chief. Just remember the topping off ceremony is on December 6th. What time is that, Atrisha? 12:30. So be here at the town hall and we'll go into the new fire station and look at those items. Boy. So we're still working behind the scenes as it relates to the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. When that final report will come out, I've pretty much assembled a team working on the final touches. As soon as I get those reviews of engagement letters back from Mr. Torsivia, we'll have a team in place. I'm thinking after the holiday, I'll reach out. We'll have some one-on-ones, take a deep dive into that issue, along with the Milani issue, built a team there. So I'm working out some of those details for you all to ensure our interests, one, with the Delray are not lost, and we are in a position to defend. So happy we're in a good spot. So I don't want to tip my hat, but we got a good team we're putting together, and I'll walk you through each of those. And again, it's going to take some time. So I knew when that released or hit, we get excitable, but it's going to, for the attorneys in the room, it takes a long time and it doesn't go fast, right? So, so long as we're continually moving towards our success and defending our position, holding our position. David and I met with our auditors, forensic auditors, made sure their work is to the much as what they've been provided is closed out. Glenn has drafted a letter. I haven't had a chance to review it. I'll review it over the next couple of days. We're going to submit our concerns and comments to JLAC so they know exactly some of our concerns with the process deployed and some of their findings. But we find kind of steering outside the boundaries established for the Auditor General. So we're working on all those things, but going well. My friends in the fire service have told me the movement to changing fire schedules continues to change. I was hoping it would take a hell of a lot longer, but they're very active. So what that means is we were traditionally planning a 24-48, right? 1 on, 2 off, Kelly days, coordinate that all. We have a commitment within our COCPN, which is for ambulatory emergency rescue services, that we have to have a certain level of staffing. We made those commitments to get our license. So Delray Beach joined Boca and Boynton and Riviera Beach to go to 24-72s. So when we talked earlier, when you heard the school board member, how do you work on retention? Looks like we're slowly becoming an island of 24-48, which is going to hurt recruitment and retention. So David and I I'm crunching the numbers with David to see what that looks like. What that basically means, cost us a little bit more, right? To add that 4th shift to go to a 24-72. But again, everybody around us is going to, so I think Delray is going to, at an elevated cost, 24-72 plus a lieutenant. So that number is quite larger. So we're working on that because otherwise there is the overtime cost to stay at a 24-48, handle the Kelly days. Then people will start vacationing, not immediate, but as we roll this out, we'll find ourselves in that situation. So they blessed me with this wonderful news on Friday. So we're going through, last week was interesting. So we're going through all the financial things. So David's building that budget out so I can give you something to look at. It's not that big, but it's a bigger number. The cost goes up a little bit, but it's not off the charts like millions of dollars. Talking several $100,000 difference. But again, everybody around us is going to that. The county's banging that drum. They want to go there too. So eventually we'll be surrounded by completely 24-72s. The value is you don't have Kelly days where every 6 shifts, 4 shifts. Sure, if chief wants to come up to explain it, then you have to have a forced day off. We cover that. Then then we have another person that's off. Next thing you know, we've gone from an 8-person shift to 6 immediately, and we're short on our promises made to the county licensing board.
Yeah, so we made the commitment to having 8 people on shift, and with the 24-48 with the 3 with Kelly, there's 7 days in the week and there's 8 people on the shift. So which means that one day we'll have 2 people off at the same time, which causes us to hire back overtime to maintain that minimum demanding that we promise. So we crunch the numbers, me and the staff, Tom and Matt, we spent 2 weeks with David going through all the numbers to see what that change would look like, and is there something we could do to mitigate that change? One of the options is to go to 24-72 where you don't have the Kelly day, and it gives you an extra shift. The additional personnel we're looking at, it's about 4 or 5 people from what we already established. So there is that cost, and then we discussed it with the manager as an option other than paying overtime. The issue with paying overtime is a little bit cheaper. What we have with the overtime is that we have, fatigue. People are working all the time and they have mandatory overtime and holidays. And so calling somebody in on Christmas to cover an extra shift creates a sense of, stress in the organization. So again, this is just an option. We're looking at the numbers. The manager said he would look at it in an open mind, which surprised me because he's rather.
Oh, come on, come on.
But I'm impressed that he is looking at it with an open mind, and then he'll come up with some numbers and address it to you. And if there's any questions for me directly, why this is we think it's the best option on the table. I mean, we won't have to answer questions on that end.
Yeah, so again, our initial anticipation of savings versus status quo remains the same. It doesn't change. It's just the whole system went up.
Right.
We've had basic conversation that this day may come. I was hoping maybe that was on the 5 to 10 year horizon. Delray's going on a 2-year implement. Riviera, we've already got Boynton Beach there. Boca's been doing it for whatever, 30 years, you guys were saying. So, you know, it's just that energy in South Florida is growing. And if we're the only remaining agency on a 24/48, a lot of firefighters aren't going to find that attractive. So we have to, again, especially at the onset, maintain that attractiveness for retention purposes.
On the plus side, we're ahead of Delray by 2 years. We're ahead of Boynton Beach. I mean, not Boynton, Riviera Beach by 2
Yeah,
years.
we have the opportunity. That's the other thing is the implementation. We have the opportunity to do it now.
Right.
While they're doing this phase in over 2 years, which gets kind of complicated. And we're doing it before the union gets involved for the current group where they may, I don't want to say make it difficult, but it complicates matters where then we have to collectively bargain a modification mid-contract. Does get a little bit challenging, not impossible, but challenging. So we're gonna look at the numbers. I think in the big picture isn't a lot. But I just want to make sure with David that we have a clear presentation to you all. Maybe next week when we have those one-on-ones, I'll grab David. He'll do a Power BI for you and you can, punch your way through it. I got you committed to something. So you're on the clock. So we will be able to walk you through the numbers. Again, initially it's several $100,000, say 350, 400, somewhere right there, which on our total budget is about 10% change. But let us crunch those numbers a little bit more. If that pulls down the overtime from original assumptions, there's some mitigating effects, but everybody's going there. So I guess now would be the time. They're right. The opportunity is now because there may be a slight modification to the building we have to make, but those are what we're looking at. So basically it's a whole extra shift, if you will, roughly plus or minus an extra shift. But we'll see what we can do and get those presentations to you. So
we need additional living quarters that weren't already, is that what you're saying? The
no, because
modification
it's just an
building?
extra shift. So it's an extra day of a new group. Instead of 3 groups alternating days, you have 4 groups alternating days.
An extra pantry and
The refrigerator,
refrigerator.
it's kitchen issues more.
And
kitchen more
an
than anything.
extra locker in the bunk rooms.
So that should be.
So as far as long-term costs, it's very, very small.
Oh, okay.
The personnel cost is 80% of everything you pay for. So that's what we're so concerned about.
Yeah, we're working through the other details. Basically think of what eventually our collective bargaining agreement will probably look like. Chief and his team have put together those type of accruals, payouts, leave, holiday. Again, as a 24-hour shift, it's a little bit different. Like police is a little bit different than standard employees. Fire's a little bit different too. So it'll be a unique set of requirements or procedures and policy elements. But again, kudos to Matt and Chief for working on this. They kind of matched what we had, the same spirit and intent, but with different calculations from a 42 or 48-hour shift per week. So it's a little bit different. But it met the spirit and intent that we don't want the long-term liability. So we have to lock down those accruals to not be a burden down the road. So the spirit and intent is there. So we're working through those details as well.
Since the weekly hourly rate would be close to what the PD does right now, so we're able to use that as a springboard to make sure that, our benefits and packages and all that stuff line up to what's already existing.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're in a good spot. I mean, I say it, maybe I'm saying it too seriously. We're in a good spot. We have a good team. The spirit of everyone moving forward is just, this is coming a little bit earlier than I thought. Again, some of these towns, I don't know how these larger can pull that trigger. That's a real big expense when you figure you got multiple stations. So Delray, Riviera Beach, that's a big cost that they're going to have to unravel and move on. For us, it's not as big to accommodate. The last thing is the color. We're doing our best. The challenge we didn't think about with changing the color Sam said tomorrow we should get the renderings to color renderings the best we can. The trick amongst all of it is the tower. The tower is to overnight paint the tower is like $500,000. So we're not doing that. So we're going to have a beige tower in the backdrop. So we're trying to find ways to accommodate that. Pat is adamant that he'll come in here screaming and hooting and holler if you go to white because of the natural rusting at seams and bolts. That looks really bad on a white tower to see the rust coming down, where right now it kind of fades a little bit. It's not as noticeable on that beige color background. So we're trying to do something where white becomes the prominent color, but holds some elements while small with that beige to kind of pull exactly. Right now, the first set of drawings, the beige was a little bit much. It was a bit much to just like kind of just flip the colors real quick. Like whatever was the beige becomes white, whatever white was that it needs to be toned down a little bit. So they're looking at muting that a little bit so we can have something that looks pretty good and then still ties in with the orange tile, barrel tile roof, which we've already ordered. We already have it. So we just have to be color conscious a little bit. So I've challenged Joby to do a little better job and tone down the amount of it to soften where we could still have the lighter white color with the orange roof, but the accent will be a little bit of beige. So then when you have the tower in that backdrop, it kind of pulls it in enough. It doesn't look totally out of place. So, and then we will paint years after in the background, bring everybody else in the same pattern, if you will.
What you just said, you mean the town hall and the old fire department. So you said down the road. So what would we see if we lighten this building? Lighten the new fire building and
It would
have
probably
the
take us,
remaining
yeah, it would probably take
buildings.
us like
How would that
18
look?
months to do the rust. It's a pretty big paint job. Luckily, town hall needs new paint anyway, and I'd already scheduled it to be repainted immediately following because it's
Okay,
construction wear and tear, dust, and it was kind of fatigued already. So that was scheduled. It would be the library, which would be the least noticeable. Then it would be the water plant. So everything up front, I think within 6 months of the station being complete, we'll move to that color palette. So what you see from the roads would be that new color palette, and then thereafter move to these other buildings. And Pat's reaching out to who's ever painting the station to hold the colors and see if they can't give us a quote to move it back, and we just kind of start tackling it sequentially. But yes, it's moving. I'll hopefully have that rendering. So over Thanksgiving, you can take a look at it.
He promised
me-
to have it tomorrow, so
Yeah.
hopefully it's on time and then.
And some of the colors on the original ones, they had like the windows were blue, like a sky blue. It doesn't really reflect that way. It's more smoky gray with the 45% for the sea turtles. So, for the planning folks watching, that was a plug for you all. But making sure the color of the window, so you have a better representation. But again, the first go at it it's a bit much. Or to go to complete like white and gray with an orange roof, it was tough to too much. So we've been looking through the color palettes, which I have here, and see if we can't get there. But we got to do it quickly. So you'll get something when I get it on tomorrow. I'll send it out to y'all and, just take a look at it. See if you're like, it's not enough, too much. But I think it looks pretty decent with what I suggested to him. Right, Teresa? It was a little bit better. Turned it down just a little bit from the first set. Because it was just too much beige on top of it was just a weird
I'm
color.
staying completely out of that.
Yeah, he stayed out. He won't say anything. So we're doing our best to give you guys a good thing to react to versus the first three I didn't really care for. So if they changed it a little bit in Photoshop, I think you'll get a better look at a couple options. But again, the tower was the issue. I didn't think about the tower for whatever reason, building buildings, and Pat came in, he goes, "What are you gonna do with that tower?" I'm like, that's several, up to $500,000 to repaint the tower. That wasn't really in the budget. And we were not going to paint it for 5 years. And he said, "Whatever you do, don't paint it white." So then what do we do? So maybe the beige stays and we could tie it in just well. So the other thing is on our logo, there's a white image of like the sun or whatever. Maybe we look at that as the white color for the building. So it ties into the logo on that, whatever that, see if that can match into a Sherwin-Williams outdoor color. So, that should be on that. So we got a good consulting legal team ready to help you protect your interests as we move forward with Delray, whether that's through mediation, which, if they choose to do it. My guess is we'll maybe see that in December 1st with their true up. Might be their first attempt to collect. I don't know. Because the the report isn't final. JLAC hasn't reviewed it in public. I know our legislator's not pleased, so we'll see how this all unfolds.
Okay.
Well, I have a question, Marshall, with respect to our signage. How is that, the new signs coming in and out of town?
Well, the white on the new signs will match whatever white the building is going to be. So, but we're still waiting on the architect to finish that out. I don't think color selections, we have basically structural components. If you remember, it's a breakaway, whether that's a pressed foam or something like that, or a frangible wood stone structure that falls over. We will make sure the colors all the way through are tied together.
Okay.
And the old fire station, we got a couple small renovations, not enough to show you anything different yet, but that building will be the same color and all that same content.
Okay.
It's coming together. Yes, as much as
Good.
I'm not good at color coordinating as much, so hopefully the architects give us something that makes us feel comfortable going forward.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on to the Florida Department of Transportation, the RRR update.
Chris, you want to do it? Peters, you said you talked to some folks at the condo meeting about bike lanes and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
basically,
we-
I don't have any update as it relates to our project, but last week was the Boca
Evelyn
update.
and I went to the beach association meeting at the Sea Ranches today, and Boca just had their meeting with the FDOT, and they're getting 4 to 6 foot bike paths, 6 foot. So people are a little bit angry, and I think they had quite a few people at the meeting, they said, but I guess they're still in the process, and I guess they're gonna be jealous that we're down to 5. you
Could
know,
be, yep.
And they're putting bicycles, the bicycle pictures in the bike lanes, which I don't think we want.
Yes,
here.
so we have unmarked shoulders. They're going to a marked bike lane. So I think they have certain requirements. I think 6 is a minimum-ish
Yeah.
to move forward with that, outside of some engineering constraints possibly. But that's all I have on FDOT. I mean, there's nothing new back to us. They're bidding it, waiting to hear back.
I think theirs is starting in 26, I think they said. 26, 25, 26.
I think it's
forget their-
25,
yeah.
like, or late 25.
They didn't realize ours was some of them starting earlier, so surprised you think they would do Boca's first, then us, but
And even they were talking about 2027.
yeah,
It
they're,
seemed like a long way out to
Yeah.
me. So I
could be,
don't know
yeah.
that they really have a clear picture of when it's going to start.
Moving on to Milani Park. Anything new there?
So again, the other set of team, I'm building a team there. Getting the word out a little bit. Again, once I solidify a few things, with that, I think we have, I think I have a good, legal side of that where I'm working through the lobbying, political side of it and who that would be best to, strike those conversations. Have handful of, I would say handful of 3 that are really good. One I really, really like. The other 2 interesting, kind of vetting it out a little bit. So we'll see. Maybe we have a couple work from different angles. It's that important to us. So I'm looking to build the appropriate size team. And even if we have, 2 lobbyists knocking on doors better than 1, each seem to have maybe a different angle or relationship. So we'll have to see how that goes. So that's a little bit less, the political side's a little less defined, basically a lobbyist or a public consultant to work through how to change mindsets of other district commissioners or show them our side of the story and the options that exist. As you heard here today, again, from the school board, we have these real gnarly socioeconomic issues with affordable housing and workforce housing. Yet we want to dump all this money into a small park that won't serve as many folks. So if we could show them the picture of, you can make this, whatever, 25, 30, we'll have to get an appraisal to see what that property is truly worth. Boy, could that be really used and leveraged into other things in other districts that really improve other people's lives at a greater scale than an underbuilt park at the moment. That is kind of dangerous, has some hazards, it's paid parking. It's just, it's not going to draw what they think. But I guess they would get a park, they check the box for additional park check. I don't think it provides the value they hope. So if we could convince them on the value argument, boy, we could really use it to work on these other items. Shoot, even after today, some of these school board items seem to be really pressing that the county can participate with the school board, leverage those dollars up rather than just leaving them on the table.
I don't think Hammond Park is used too much. And if they're doing something similar to that, then this wouldn't be used either.
Well, my concern would be that would be their argument. Why are you fighting us? Let us build something that no one uses. But that
Well,
just
but
doesn't seem to be a good use of that
No.
land facility or potential dollars at a heightened raw land market. Boy, that seems like an opportune time to actualize your investment potential, right? You bought this for 4 million, 25, 30 years ago. Boy, how things have changed. Take those dollars with the 250 to 300 million bond referendum that we all are paying for. Boy, you just added 10% to that. Let's say you just made that pot of money bigger. You could really address some issues. I would think that would be the way to go. It's, all this mental health stuff. Well, working with the health district, it'd be nice to, maybe they got a few bucks. It could really start helping the schools provide the mental health services, which I think everybody will agree, mental health is something we need to really work on. Boy, this would be a great opportunity. Now they buy it, but we're going to figure out that strategy per your guidance and direction. And again, when we have our one-on-ones, I'll get you more up to speed, walk you through the folks, and then we'll just start moving that energy that direction. And then when you talk to your neighbors, the neighbors are they're going to activate. I don't think they're going to really get charged until after February 1st. But I sense it's starting to grow that don't do that. Let's, tell the county what we think. The managers monthly, I said, if you're really worked up, start writing, I want to say like a letter writing campaign, like the old school, but, contact your commissioner if you're really upset. We can only do so much. Call your
Right.
commissioner and say, what are you thinking about here? Why are you such a proponent of this?
I've told them to do that.
Yeah. So
And they were talking about a petition. I said, don't send a petition until you hear what they say. You can't preempt it.
Mhm.
So if you want to bring it to the meeting after they make a presentation, that's okay, but don't go crazy yet. You really got to let the county have their day. You don't want to tell them what you're going to argue against before they make their presentation, because then they'll change the presentation to address what your complaint is.
correct.
So you have to do it in steps or it doesn't work.
So just curious, these professionals that you're interviewing for this team that we're building out, has there been discussion about it kind of along the same lines? There's only so much Highland Beach can do. Do they talk about, we can get these affordable housing groups also behind this movement if they hear about this potential 10 to 20,000, $20 million, to get other groups as part of the movement,
The-
not just Highland Beach.
Yeah, I'll probably talk more in general terms. We'll get specifics when we meet individually. But yeah, there's, it appears development, especially appropriate development, or this is a time where people or commissioners are more willing to listen to it than maybe historically have been. So we got to figure out how to get into those spaces. And that's really what that lobbyist, consultant, public engagement individual will have to do is, they have relationships with these folks and can talk to them honestly. If I go in as charming as I think I can be, I don't have any, I don't have that relationship with them. So that's a difficult challenge, they'll listen, but how do I convince them? And that's where we need a little bit of help to see, based on experience, how do we start? What do they need to hear? Is that possibility? So.
Marcia, oh, go ahead. A quick thing, can we put, Commissioner Marcy's address on our website, say, please contact? Is that legal or is that?
I believe we did. Didn't we put her contact information or we just left it to contact her? I mean, it's all public record. I mean, that's
Right,
nothing.
right.
Yeah, we would put it in the manager's minute that's online and, on the web page. If you notice, if you go to those web pages went live, correct?
Yeah.
So you'll notice we've given the public the content, right?
Okay.
Not that they couldn't have it before, but made it
Right.
easier to get, so that of calling like, let me see that contract when somebody gets fired up. Our website shows all those historical documents that they can review. We could put right there, here's the county commissioner or link to the county commission page. They can call any of the county commissioners. So
Website is good because I went on it the end of last week. Just because I told people to go to it.
yeah.
So I
I'm-
said, well, I better see what it is they're going to see.
Hopefully you like it.
And if I can navigate it, anybody can navigate it. It was very clear and easy and all the documents were labeled and that was great.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at, and we'll just, the momentum will build. I think February really takes form and really starts that engine of what direction. So our goal over the next few months is to get the right team together, kick the tires on a few cars, see what's out there, what can happen. And then we're ready to go on February 1, because I think when the residents hear it, they will not be overly pleased. I don't know. I have not met those 1, 2, or 3 individuals that want the park. I have not met them yet. So if they're watching by chance, if you give me a call so I could see, talk to you as to why you might, just maybe I'm missing something. I know that some thought that, if you have a public beach, you get all this money for beach nourishment. It only goes a
don't.
quarter mile each way. Doesn't
don't.
really
You know,
boost much for sand placement. And with the,
Spaces. I think there was a minimum parking space to get that grant money or whatever. That's what, we had said.
and,
well, the original design has enough
Yeah.
parking spaces, but we're,
But
not with the
but,
plan.
Yeah.
but wouldn't they start counting when they're doing nourishment from where it is now? They're not gonna build it out
Right.
to
What-
where it was previously, so you're stuck with what you've got now, which is not a great piece of beach.
well, I think the Yamato Rock also is a unique feature that we have, and I don't know how much sand you can bury that with over time. I think that's gonna be some limitation, because it does act as a slightly below surface growing where sand accumulates on one side versus the other. So all that stuff will come into play. I have to still try to find an archaeologist. It's been kind of challenging. Just there isn't like, just walk around like archaeologists, like, hey, how you doing? So trying to call a few folks. Again, I'll double back with the tribe and see if they have an archaeologist that may help us. Just trying to get the feelers out and pull some responses back. But next week, Teresa and I will reach out. We'll start sitting one-on-one meetings. We'll probably have to do them a little more regularly and just, keep you guys posted. So when you have those points of contacts with folks, you know what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to new business, item A, approve and authorize town staff to purchase the Bauer Model L13-E3 breathing air station from Compressed Air Supplies and Equipment in the amount of $52,805 for the fire rescue department.
You're up. Okay.
So, Glenn Joseph, Fire Chief. The Bauer air compressor system is what we use to fill our SCBA's. The model they put together for the fire, and we'd already spec'd out a larger model, but after talking to the staff, Matt and Tom and the rest, we decided that to pare it down because the original model was around 80,000, 86,000. But because of our use case, our use profile, we decided to go with this much smaller model. Same quality of air, same usability, but it's gonna be a little louder than the older one because the other one was enclosed. But we don't expect to get a fire every week. So it's going to be, we pared it down to our best use case, which dropped the price by 30,000. So you're looking at the best quality air compressor in that price range. Quality of air is number one, and we'll have to get a service contract with it to make, because they check it like every 30 days, every 60 days. the air quality and carbon monoxide content and all that stuff. And if you scuba dive, come by, we'll get you that. Any questions?
Make some money at it. How much can we charge for a filling? I'm gonna take care of these new guys here. I mean, what are we gonna do?
$3, you know, bring some cookies, no.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? No. Okay. we
I
can
don't have any
No,
questions.
that's a
Thank
good
you.
piece of equipment.
We can have a motion.
I move that we approve the purchase of the Bauer Model L13-E3 breathing air station in the amount of $52,805.
Seconded.
It's not that much money, so do you want a roll call or? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Go ahead. I know. I know.
Yes.
Commissioner Peters,
Yes.
Commissioner David,
Yes,
and Mayor Moore.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving on to commission comments, Commissioner Goldberg, do you have anything additionally?
Well, I'd like once again to thank the two applicants. And I'm so gratified that we were able to resolve it, that they'll both be with us.
Yes.
So that was wonderful. And I thank the other speakers very much. And a happy Thanksgiving to all.
Yes, I second that. The two applicants were great and I'm glad we were able to put them both on one of the boards. Also the school board member, she's unbelievable. And we need more people like that for our education, and just happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and have a great Thanksgiving with your family.
I agree. Happy and healthy Thanksgiving to everyone.
And I second that. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
I'll say the same thing. Go Lions.
Town attorney?
I've got to disagree with Marshall because before he said he's not good at color coordination, but look at that nice outfit,
I
you know,
know.
I mean, man's got it going on there.
Yeah.
Other than that, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Okay, and with that, we adjourn. Thank you very much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yes, get it out. Let's take a look. See.
I'm gonna.
I don't
sign
want to
these.
ride. I'll just look at it. Right. You're trying.
Happy Thanksgiving, David. Yeah.